Had a bit of a stretch. We're in the final stretch. It's all right. All right. So, kia ora, welcome. Welcome everyone to our last session. Last session of today. Thank you for sticking it out. And our last session, we tried to make our last session to be a keynote speaker who's a classroom practicing teacher. And this year we are super fortunate to have Lara Cordonni be our keynote speaker, keynote speaker, that's all. And I literally just forgot the name of the school because you just said it to me. John Paul College, Rotorua. I got that right. And so I met Lara. I was fortunate to meet Lara actually quite a few years ago, and I remembered recently when it was. And it was after another Stats Teachers Day where I was doing some stuff. And then I said, I want to do another workshop. And I put a call out to people like, if you want to come along, just come, we'll do another workshop in the weekend. And Lara turned up. And it was like a web scraping kind of workshop. Marion was there too. And that's when we first met. And then since then, I've been privileged to get to know Lara more. As someone who's really enthusiastic about teaching, but also really thinks carefully about what matters the most for her students and for her staff in her department as well. So she's currently head of department at John Paul College. And before that, I didn't know, but she was working in trade marketing and trying to convince people to, for example, what kind of Fanta flavour might entice more people to drink, or Lion Breweries, and what was it, trying to sell beer to Japanese, is it? Or, yeah. So went into teaching, thought she might teach economics, but she was lured in by statistics, and we are very, very fortunate for that. So it's my pleasure to introduce Lara.
Kia ora. Ko paratiamu te whakapaparanga mai ko Flanders Fields te whenua tupu, ko tihi o tonga toku whanau mai. No Rotorua ahau, he kaia ko pangarau i te kura o Hoani Paora ko Lara toko ingoa. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. So for those of you who might recognise some of the pictures, I originally come from Belgium, more specifically Flanders Fields, but that was last century. This century, I live on the other side of the equator in Rotorua. Initially, I landed in Auckland, as most imports do, and worked, as Anna was saying, in Lion Breweries and Coke, but then sort of felt I needed a bit more in life with my job. So I retrained as a teacher, initially as an economics teacher, but then the stats teacher left. And so I started my maths career in Year 13 statistics and then sort of went back down. So that's a little bit about me. Today's session is really all the little things I've tried this year with my classes and with other classes, and I thought might be useful for you to do as well. I've left off the bits that didn't work, but maybe I should have included them as well, because I'm a great believer in modelling, when it doesn't go well either. Okay, enough about me. Now, when Anna asked me to be the keynote speaker as a teacher, I was in this place here. I had decided in the last holidays to have a little bit of a digital detox, but as I was sitting at the top of a mountain and I was waiting for that top right-hand corner to clear of tourists, I made the mistake of opening my phone because it was my cousin's birthday, and here's the message from Anna: can you please be the keynote speaker? So, as this is about statistics, can't really do anything without data. I'd like to actually for you to fill out this Google form, if you wouldn't mind. 3 very simple questions. The first one is about the photo, and the second one as well, and the third one's a little bit about you. Cool, have we got that? Yeah. I'll just jump to the Google form if that's all right. Is that working? Yep. Am I hearing a yes? Okay, here we go. They're coming in. Thank you. So first question was really, where was the photo taken? Now, North Islanders might be more familiar than South Islanders, but hey. I stand to be corrected. Second question, how long did it take me to get home? And then third question, how long have you been teaching? All right, let's have a look. Okay, very good. Now, as you can see, the first one, I didn't put any limits on how you can answer that question. You should just get text. Therefore, you get all sorts of versions, lowercase, uppercase, and you can't really do much with the data as it is. Let's have a look at how long it took me to get home. Oh, half an hour. No, I did not take a helicopter. 10 and a half. 25 and a half. I like it. Who was that? All right. It actually took me 25 hours to get home because I decided I switched my phone back off, and I thought, Anna, I shall leave you where you are, and stayed the night at the hut. And then drove back home. Now, 42 people just did that Google form. I had no purpose on that Google form. I didn't tell you who I was, although Anna introduced me. So one of the things I do with my students when we do a Google form is actually give a bit more detail, about the purpose, and also talk about the fact that actually you are going to give me your data. You need to make sure that you can give your the people who give you the data, the assurance that you are going to use that data just for the purpose that it's intended for, that you're going to look after the data. So really hit home data as a taonga, and that you are a kaitiaki as a researcher. Right, the first thing we did this year was burgers over books always, especially with teenage boys. So the first set of data that we collected, primary data, was about our Three Angels Cafe, so that's our canteen, yeah. And we actually I generated the Google form and the information with my senior classes, but actually used it with my junior classes as well. So you can collect primary data in one class and then actually use it in different classes, because we're all time poor as teachers. All right, I digress. So as I said before, so make sure I teach my students, communicate your purpose. Only collect what you need. Don't ask questions that you're not going to use, that are not relevant, and be sensible about your respondents. So those are my 3 guidelines for my students. All right, so this is what we put up. So surveys being conducted by myself. It's to collect data to use for teaching statistics in the senior school. Now, that second question got me in trouble at one point, because I didn't actually ask the canteen manager if I could do this survey, and he got wind of it, and he was a little bit cross. But because I'd said in the survey that it was only going to be used for use in the classroom, I couldn't actually share it with him. So I went for an intermediate step and showed him some of the graphs. Now, luckily, my last question was all around customer survey satisfaction, and it came back very positively, so I turned the canteen manager around. All right, so when you submit this form, so answers will be recorded and the date, time. I'm not going to keep any other information, and then my email address there in case they've got any questions. So just a general purpose. Then in terms of the questions, I went through them about question design, what to think about. This is a recap, you all know this, but avoid lead-in questions, so make them quite clear. Respect the privacy of the student. That wasn't that relevant for the canteen survey. Cultural sensitivity. So for example, when I was collecting gender data, I was got male, female, and then prefer not to say. We have that option there. And then also clarity. If you do multi-choice answers, make sure there's no ambiguity there. All right, so one of the sample questions. So what's the most expensive item that you've bought at the canteen this week? And there's part of the menu there. Now, what do students usually do with questionnaires like that? They're going to try and break it, aren't they? Yeah, okay. So it pays in the questionnaire to put some limits in. Otherwise, students will say, for example, I bought an item of $48 or something like that. And you can quite easily do that. So in Google Forms, there's options there, but you can also be more specific and use what we call regex or regular expression. Yeah. All right. So the regular expression for this, and where you do this. So if I go to the questions here, so down here. So if you click on here, you get all these options. Sorry, it's not going to. Down here. Yep. So you've got number, text, length, and then you've got that regular expression. Yeah. So the regular expression allows me to be more specific than just giving it a number, less than, more than, etc., etc. Now, the way the regular expression works. Now, I do not want to go from the start. Is like so. So the first. I call it a circumflex, yeah, and circumflex actually in Latin means around the bend. So that's your start, yeah, okay, all right. The dollar sign at the end means the end, yeah. So the circumflex is the start, the dollar sign's at the end. Then the first bracket is I want a single digit from 1 to 0, for 1 to 9 and 0 excluded. So we can't get students to say, oh, I bought an item of $0, yeah. And on that menu, there's no items above $10, so I only need one digit between 1 and 9. Then we've got the second bracket, and as you can see, there's the backward slash and a dot, so that means there's a decimal point. I only want it to 2 digits. So after you tell it to do a decimal point, you can get a number again between 0 to 9. And then I've got in those semicolon brackets 1 to 2, so 2 digits. But then afterwards I've got the question mark, which allows it to not have a decimal point as well. So I can put the number 2 in, yeah, or I can put 2.1 in or 2.15, anything like that, yeah. So with putting that regular expression in, and you'll get some students, they'll try and break it, and I've got some evidence of it. So once they've done it, then you've got, can you see the line at the bottom, the instructions? So number below 10 up to 2DP, no dollar sign, please, yeah. So they try it, it doesn't work, and then you kind of give them a specific instruction. Now, with this regex, it looks complicated, but I use ChatGPT a lot. Yeah, I just ask ChatGPT, can you give me a regular expression for a number, give it a bit of context, and it will just give it back to you, but make sure you actually, bulletproof it with your department. All right, so after that, regular expression, so these are some examples of the data. Now, as you can see, so this is work from one of my students. So how much did you typically spend at the canteen last week? And I put a cap on $50. So 1 year 9 found the cap, yeah, at $50. And there was actually quite a few big spends in year 13 as well. Now, this particular context generated a lot of rich discussion because it was about them. Yeah, they go to the canteen. Now, before I go back, continue, I did skip this part here, which is our lovely sources of variation. Yeah, year 11. Okay, all right. So, of course, we've got the ones that we can mitigate and the ones that are unavoidable. So, i.e. natural and sampling variation, and then the mitigated ones, measurement, occasion to occasion, and induced variation. All right, so sampling variation. Rather than just rattle off the standard idea of what sampling variation is, I get them to think in context. What does it mean in terms of the canteen? Well, every time you get a different sample, you're going to have different students, different habits in terms of the canteen. So because they can relate to the context, they can sort of apply it. Then they had a brainstorm about the natural variation. So some students don't like canteen food, so their spend will be $0. Some people eat more than others. Different students got different lifestyle, more money, etc., etc. So we thought about those first, the natural variation, and that natural variation actually gives them then ideas to interpret the data. Yeah, all right. Why is there more spread for the year 9s, for example, than the year 13s? They can go back to that natural variation. All right, in terms of what can be mitigated, so the measurement variation, so, take a menu and ask people what they bought rather than the dollar spend, because they might not remember all the products. However, most of them, or at least the regular customers, know the menu off by heart. Then there's occasion to occasion. Some people might get, all their money at the beginning of the year and blow it on the Monday. So they might have more money on Monday rather than Thursday. Another one, I don't know if it's the same at other schools, but canteens actually got different specials on different days, and certain specials are more popular than others. So you could get data on different days. So these are all ideas from my students, and it's just a small sample of it, because they were quite vocal and engaged about it all. Right, so I've shown you this one. Here's another interesting one, which is on the wait time. So again, I capped it at 20 because the year 9s only have 20 minutes of canteen time at lunchtime. Yeah, so there's no point in writing 100 minutes. So in here, as you can see, so the wait times for year 9s is a lot longer on average than year 13s. At our school, don't know if it's the same at other schools, the seniors have got the privilege of going to the canteen first for the first 10 minutes, and then the juniors can go. Now, another interesting fact that the kids picked up on, like once you get to 10, can you see it goes in 5-minute blocks, the wait times, yeah? So people's perception of time becomes a little bit, people tend to round it. So that was one big, study that we did across all year levels, across a lot of year levels, collecting the data. And interestingly, different year levels sort of came up with different explanations, ideas about this. Now, the second one I actually borrowed from an English teacher, and it was about gum. So these are year 8, so our school goes from year 7 to 13. And what she did with her class was she collected data around gum pieces. Yeah. Now, as you can see, the main student entrance area's got the most, 445, right? People come in, and what they do? Gum on the floor. Yeah. Followed by the canteen area. I presume a lot of students actually just do the same thing before they have some lunch. Now, in English, they then worked out, they went to the caretaker and asked how much it cost to actually remove it all, and they were astounded. It was over $2,000, and they actually then wrote a letter to the principal explaining what they could do with that $2,000. But thinking about it, some of the gum culprits were probably in that class. So, So anyway, collected that data. I actually took that data to my year 13s and asked them whether they could, because we were doing probability distributions, and I sort of asked, can we model this? What distribution could we use to model the gum? Yeah. Now, as you can see here, student area, C block canteen, 8-7 area. Now, this is an aerial map of our school. I've sort of drawn a rough boundary around it. Now, the year 8s actually collected the data in the top right corner. Yeah, so they actually forgot a lot of the school. Yeah, they didn't count it. So that number is probably going to be a lot higher. So then I also took it and asked, if we had to take a sample, how would we do it? So we decided to put grid lines across the school and then, just pick certain squares of the grid. In terms of the distribution, so Poisson came up, but then, they quickly discarded it because probably there'd be more gum in certain areas rather than others. It wouldn't be equally distributed. So that was a second lot of primary data that we collected. Now on to some secondary data that students also got hooked into it. So clouds, chaos, and teens. You can probably guess what this one is going to be about. But this is from Health New Zealand survey. So prevalence of daily smoking, and this is like data from last month. Total population aged 15 plus from 2013 to 2022, 2023. Yeah, at first sight, you go, yippee, smoking habits are going down. So when we would do this graph, so we would give them the statistical concepts related to time series, and remind them about the context and the stats and the numbers overlapping in between. So don't just go, it goes down. No, be very specific and give me the numbers. Right, this is UP, it's going down. However, if you put that onto it, you can see that there's been kind of a little bit of a substitution effect happening, daily vaping. So as soon as you put the daily vaping up, they get interested, because I don't know about your school, but we do have a bit of an issue with vaping, around the school. So, although smoking's going down, incidence of vaping's going up. And then we broke it down a little bit further. So this is the graphs broken down into age groups, So as we can see, unfortunately, in that 15 to 17-year group, the percentage of vapors is actually higher than the percentage of smokers in any of the year levels. And so is that my time up? 18 to 24. So, that generated quite a bit of, discussion. So that's what I would do with the juniors. So just looking at the graph, getting them to describe it. But with the seniors, we then dug deeper, and we actually looked at the survey, how the data was collected. So went onto the Health Service page, and this is the data collection method. All right, New Zealand Health Survey is a face-to-face survey. Right, so first thing that came up, they might not tell the truth because it's a face-to-face survey, okay? And also under 18, there might be the caregiver that gives the information, might not be completely accurate. So randomly selecting a small group of a sample of small geographic areas, we're happy with that. We had a bit of a discussion around the usually resident population. There's quite a bit of transient population in Rotorua, where I'm from. Now, of those invited, 73% of adults, 70% of children, actually took part. Is that high enough? So we had a discussion about that. What if the 27% of adults that didn't respond were actually, heavy smokers, vapors, etc., etc.? So we had a bit of a discussion at Year 13 around this, how you collect the data collection method, which leads into statistically based reports. All right, so that's on vaping. We also looked at the questionnaire to see whether it was easy to follow and whether it was exclusive, which we thought it was. All right, the next one is, yes, I do have an economics background, and this is Brad Olson, who was the keynote speaker at the Stats Conference in Whangarei. That is his website. So on here, you've got so on the left-hand side, there's a whole lot of economic indicators. Now, the one I was interested in that relates also to the students is our school attendance. So that's the graph on the left. So, but unfortunately, as you can see in Rotorua, we are quite a bit lower than New Zealand. This particular website allows you to compare regions, so they might be able to compare with friends in other regions, etc., etc. Infometrics, so quite a readily available graphs, and students can have a play around with what they want to choose. Unfortunately, linked to that is the crime rate, which is a lot higher I'm not making any inferences here, but a lot higher in Rotorua than in the rest of New Zealand. So that's from that same Infometrics website. So that's quite a good one, especially at the moment, to keep students engaged, just something different. Okay, why did the standard deviation get in trouble in my class? It took me a couple of days to work it out, but every time I used the word sigma, I had all the boys giggling. Yeah, okay. I'm from Europe. Sigma is just a Greek letter, all right, okay? So, and I actually ended up just calling it standard deviation, not, when we had to draw it, I went, the symbol with the stick down and then the curl around? No, I did dare to use the word sigma. So I actually went onto Google Trends and I thought, let's have a look at this sigma. Yeah, okay, all right. There is a bit of an increase happening towards the end of the year. So this is over the past 5 years. And then I overlapped it with Sigma male, which gives you a few peaks, all right? But again, going on to Google Trends using this, they can put in any of their buzzwords. It's not just Sigma, there's a whole lot of words out there. Gives you a nice time series graph, and they can discuss it, okay? But you got them hooked doing statistics without them knowing it. All right, so Google Trends. This is an idea borrowed from Julia Crawford. She put me onto this last year. Really enjoyed it. There's one in particular I want to share. The one I'd also recommend is the basketball one. I have a group of basketball boys in Year 12, and the basketball slow reveal with James LeBron and all that got them really engaged. But this one to me was relevant to Year 11, 1.3 standard. All right, enough. Okay, slow revealed goes like this. Now, when I first, if you've never done one of those, the first time I put it up, the students were like, just tell me what the data is about. They couldn't cope with it, so you had to sort of make them get used to it. But by just seeing the dots, you know, they could immediately go, okay, what sort of a graph have I got probably in the background? What's the trend, etc., etc. Okay, then we had flags. So I got them to look at the flags and sort of like, okay, what have we got here? And the initial reaction was, oh, countries from around the world. All right, so a sample of countries around the world. And then they said, there's a lot of European countries. Yep, but there's some Latin American and some Asian countries. Which continent is missing? Probably Africa in here. So, you know, what sort of countries are they? Yeah, so we know it's about countries, but we're not sure which countries they are. And then you reveal the next part. So average weekly wage in US dollars. All right, we would rather be Mexico or Iceland. I think Iceland when it comes to average weekly wages. Why is it in US dollars? How much is US dollars in New Zealand dollars? So there's all that maths going on as well. So any ideas what's on the y-axis? Temperature? Yep. Sorry, what's that? Okay, tacos consumed per capita. That is very plausible as well. It's minimum wage, yeah. Birth rate, okay. What's that, sorry? Death per capita, okay. All right, let's have a look. I like your creative answers. Unfortunately, it's a lot more boring than that. Average working hours per week. Okay, all right. So, weekly wage against average working hour per week. Now, I don't know about your classes, but mine really struggle with that vertical variation, yeah? And this one, you can actually look at it quite clearly. So if you, for example, compare New Zealand, so we're looking for New Zealand here, and you compare New Zealand sort of with Sweden, more or less, yeah? Where would you rather be working in New Zealand, 34 hours a week on average, or 28 in Sweden? So that all of a sudden got them linked to, that's what that vertical variation is about, yeah? So same amount of money, but you are working more or less hours, yeah? So I thought, this was quite a good prep for that 1.3, exam. Now, so it's only in OECD member countries, so hence why Africa is not included. So if you Google slow reveal graphs, there's a whole raft of graphs on there that are all very, very useful. Right, how am I going? Okay, this one is from Michelle via Anna. Variety. So this is from graphs.world. So you get given a graph, yeah, with no units or nothing, and then you get a whole lot of options on the right, yeah, and you have to actually click which data set it is. Just a bit of fun, probably not for junior students, but some of your Year 13s could cope with that. So graphs.world. The Statista is one that I use quite a bit with my seniors as well, but be mindful. It's very up to date, but it's American, so I usually only use the global data. But this, shows you very clearly the rise of Chrome in here. So Statista is another one, and then this is my last one. This is from this week, and I'm sorry, I'm a Belgian, and I saw the picture, and I recognised it because René Magritte is a Belgian painter. So we've got all the numbers on the left. I got the students to convert it to New Zealand dollars, and it comes to about 180 million New Zealand dollars. And then I sort of thought, how can I, sort of explain how much $180 million is? And I worked it out, and we could give, based on the last census data, we could give everyone in Rotorua an iPhone 16 and $300 spending money for Black Friday. So Thank you very much for being my audience today. So, sorry, a little bit of a dig. No need to rocket to Uranus to connect to our students. Have a great afternoon.
We also do have a little bit of time if anyone has any burning questions or any questions at all for Lara while she's here with us.
That wasn't part of the brief.
But
I'm happy.
But there's no questions. That's all right. I've got lots of questions.
Happy to answer.
Lots of questions. Thank you so much. I did have a sneak peek of the talk yesterday, but it's one thing to kind of see bits, and then to have it all come together. And so I thought that was a great 35, was it 55? Well, the time flew. I really liked all the examples and how each of them were always about connecting back to your students, connecting them with the data, that context statistical thinking together. It was fantastic, and I think again some more ideas, great ideas that were shared, some great again collection that will help strengthen us as a community moving forward for StatsEd. So thank you again, Lara.